This was a one-off post. It was not a language learning or politics we've been here before or Lingo's meditation post. It was just a one-off post. This is learn to speak any language. 5 essential tips to learn any language. Imagine it. You're waking up on Sunday morning, you're checking your notifications, a new one pops up letting you know that you spent 11 hours per day on screen time. In disbelief, you wonder how it would be possible to spend so much time on the phone every day. Then you click on it, it takes you to your screen time settings, and it shows you a graph that looks like this. Look how much time you spent on your socials and entertainment. It's probably an extraordinary amount, but really it's so much more approachable to learn any language than it seems. Sure, there may not be a lot of useful resource material, but that is entirely okay. All you have to do is start. Here are 5 of my tips for learning a new language. Yes, they're derived from my own experience. Tip 1, get it in your brain. The absolute most important thing that anyone must do in order to learn any language, from newborns to centenarians, is to get the target language in your brain, in their brain. I know, you just don't have the time. You don't know how. Finding resources is difficult, and it is even more difficult to vet them. Weird that you have all that time to peruse social media. Just imagine what you could learn, even if it isn't a language, if you spent even 30 minutes per day away from social media. At 30 minutes per day, you can dedicate 3.5 hours every week, 24.5 hours every month, and 294 hours per year dedicating your brain to learning something new. It could be a new language, it could be a new skill, it could be a new hobby or leisure time activity. Whatever it is, 30 minutes per day truly is not a lot of time away from your outrage fabrication platforms we call social media. But Lingo, how do we get the language in our brains? That's actually the easiest part of learning a language, and I am so glad that you asked. There are several ways to attain comprehensible input. Many polyglots and internet language teachers express that a great emphasis should be on reading and listening. I disagree. I disagree because not every person has the same end goal as one another, nor does one person have the same end goal for each language that they want to learn. Some people just want to be able to understand, so they don't practice reading, writing, or speaking. Some people want to be able to read, so they don't practice any output. Some people want to be able to read, write, and speak, so they practice all of those. All that matters is that you get the language in your brain. You just have to do it in a way that helps you both to achieve your end goal and is convincing and entertaining. Tip number 2, medium. Find your method. The first step here is not necessarily to schedule time to learn the language. Instead, just try to incorporate the language into what you already spend your time doing. However, I highly recommend spending time away from social media platforms. That is your native language echo chamber. It keeps you from thinking, your stress levels high, and your emotions awry. Social media is largely an environment that you created, and I think everyone should feel safe and happy in their environments. No, the irony of me being an up-and-coming content creator is not lost upon me. If you can't give up social media, maybe transform the space that you have created for yourself. Add your target language to it. If you search anything on social media using your target language, you will enter the social media sphere of that language. Blue Sky in particular has your language. It has a Blue Sky forum channel for your language. For example, if you want to learn French, you might be interested in searching for French food. Searching for French food will bring up mostly a search result of English channels that are very remotely associated with French food. Instead, try searching for French food in French, cuisine française. And then from there, you can find everything you need on French cuisine in French. All of your social media platforms can be transformed into a language learning space. If you are a person that can give up socials or are looking for a reason to spend less time on them or a screen, I recommend reading books. Books are a great way to really get a handle on the script of the language and how the language patterns work. However, it is kind of imperative that you learn how the language sounds, so you might want to familiarize yourself with the alphabet before you read in that new language. Sometimes you can find apps that read the text for you. I like to use Link, not sponsored. I even take Hebrew videos and upload them so that I can have the video translated. If reading and social media aren't your vibes, then I recommend watching television and movies. You can sit down, relax, and interpret the language in a way that mimics how we all learned our native languages. No one ever sat us down and broke down the grammar, tenses, or spelling for us. No one ever taught us how to conjugate in our native languages. We just mimicked our elders. While it isn't actually mimicking the television or movie that you're watching, there is a method of language learning called shadowing. Shadowing is when you are watching or listening to something in your target language and you repeat what is being said. Of course, you won't know everything that is being talked about if you haven't expanded your vocabulary, seen it in context. That's okay. Accept it. Lastly, I recommend listening to music and podcasts no matter what your main medium of comprehensible input is. You can hear real conversations, stories, accents, dialects, slang, and vocabulary in real time. Your music apps often also have a lyrics option that translate many languages. I mean, if Apple Music can translate most of my Hebrew music, I'm sure it will translate whatever language you are learning. If you find that your apps cannot do that, attempt to translate them yourself. That would be a great way of actively learning a language. Tip number 3, acceptance. It takes a long time. Straight up, language learning takes a long time. Learning to do almost anything will take a lot of time and even more effort, but it shouldn't feel like a drag, a requirement, or a chore. Honestly, it's probably a great thing that most languages don't take an inordinate amount of time. I said in the beginning, 30 minutes per day leads to nearly 300 hours per year towards learning your new language. That's 300 hours that you spent trying to acculturate your mind with French or Italian or Hebrew or Spanish or Mandarin or Vietnamese and so effortlessly. Here's a chart of how long it would take to learn a foreign language for native English speakers. This list is by no means comprehensive of the thousands of languages around the world, but it does highlight the most natively spoken and most learned languages. There is also no specified metric about how many hours per day or per week were put in. Most of them take less than a year to advance rather far in. I mean, 24 weeks is approximately 1/2 of a year, rounding up. That means that it would take only approximately 150 hours to dive deep into a language at only 30 minutes per day. All you have to do is start and accept that you are going to be bad at first. That's okay. If we were all great at everything we have ever tried, then there'd be nothing to learn, and there's always more to learn. It's okay not to be fluent when you're learning a language. Hell, a toddler is bad at forming sentences in their native languages. Why should we expect less of ourselves in our non-native languages? Be kind to yourself and allow yourself to have fun during the hard parts, like in the beginning when you're barely grasping the concept of the language, but especially during the intermediate plateau. Getting through those 2 stages is much easier when you spend a little effort trying to recognize and place patterns in the language. Tip number 4, notice. Noticing how a language works will not always be straightforward. I remember when I started learning Hebrew, it sounded like a bunch of gibberish. The letters in the alphabet looked so similar to one another. It seemed like there were endless conjugations. But I kept my best foot forward and stuck with it. I started to get a handle on the script. That it was written and read from right to left, and that there were no vowels in the language. But then, slowly but surely, I started noticing the patterns. I recognized that the first person I was gender dependent, that in the present tense there were only 4 conjugations, that there were only 3 tenses in the language, and that there are actually patterns and rules to conjugating verbs, grammar studies aside. Now I am probably about as fluent in Hebrew as a middle schooler. I might argue that it's less than that. I have not been putting a whole lot of constant practice in. Maybe like a fourth grader again, whatever fluent means. But I do my best to read news and articles in Hebrew and Spanish. Tip 5, take a break. Unless you quite literally have a deadline by which to learn a language, take your time. Like Aesop showed us, slow and steady wins the race. Why do you need to feel like you're up against the clock or up against anybody? Learning a language shouldn't feel competitive, so don't bring or create unnecessary competition in something that you are trying to enjoy in your pastime. At the end of the day, your pastimes are what you make of them. That especially includes social media. When you are starting to feel like you're getting burned out of your language learning routine, take a break. Burning out is a sign that you're being too serious about it. It should not be stressful, frustrating. Sure. Stressful? Absolutely not. Take a break. Sometimes all you need is a break from the materials that you've spent the last several weeks with. Find something new. Try reading a book instead of watching a TV. Try listening to a podcast while you wash the dishes instead of reading a book. Try watching cartoons instead of the news. All of these things are great ways to get the input in your brain and take a break from the usual language learning routine you have created for yourself. Sometimes you want to keep learning languages, but your brain needs a break from your current target language. Start another one or revisit an old one. It's honestly, at least in my mind, a no-brainer. My Hebrew learning journey was born out of my Yiddish learning journey. I tried Hebrew in the middle of Yiddish and basically went headfirst into Hebrew because there was so much more content out there for Hebrew, although it did take months of digging for it. Since I have started Hebrew, I have also refamiliarized myself with Greek, started learning Arabic and Russian bit by bit, and even got some German and Mandarin in the mix. Lastly, sometimes you just need to take a genuine, authentic break from life to dissociate. I recommend dissociating with learning your target language. I do this a lot. After a social event or sometimes during an anxiety attack, I will switch off English in my brain and go to another language. Sometimes it is Spanish, but if that keeps me feeling a little too close to the environment, I go full on Hebrew. Hashtag AHAT. Hashtag all Hebrew all the time. I do not use AHAT method. Oftentimes, after I have spent an hour or so in English, as I get ready in the mornings, I will turn off English and put on a Spanish TV series or Hebrew podcast. When I am driving home from errands, I often put on my Hebrew and Spanish music. It's a healthy, creative way to both refresh and rest your mind, but also to get that target language in your brain. These are only 5 tips that I have to make language learning easier and more entertaining. I hope that you enjoyed this Substack Sunday enough to start getting the language in your brain. In fact, when you finish this, look up content in French, Spanish, Greek, Persian. See what you're able to notice in 30 minutes.